Live from New York, this is the Harvey Hour. My name's Nathan Harvey. It's great to have you in today on a Tuesday. My dad, Stephen Harvey, will join us in just a second. We're doing a little bit of an early show today. A lot to talk about. Trade deadline ends in about an hour and 52 minutes. Election days today. Please, I don't care who you vote for. Please, just go out and vote. Make your voices heard with your vote. Please vote. We do this every 4 years, so please do it. I decided to hop on here early for a number of reasons. One, trade deadline's always interesting, and I'm sure we will talk about some of the trades that are made a little bit later on today. But I did want to talk about one game in particular, and that's the Green Bay Packers and the Detroit Lions, because there's a reason why. I'm going to bring it up again. I'm going to bring up my top 10 teams list because I do think it's important. My top 10 teams were, in fact, the Detroit Lions at number 1. And there's a reason why I put them at number 1, because they are still the best team in the NFL. I know yesterday you could look at the Chiefs game and say, well, the Chiefs with now D-Hop, still one of the best offensive lines, another great running attack, Kareem Hunt coming literally off his couch, one of the best defense. Oh, no, they're the best. Look at Jared Goff, his efficiency, the numbers. They have more touchdowns on their 6-game winning streak than Jared Goff has incompletions. How is that even possible? I think it's 28 touchdowns to 24 incompletions. The offensive line has been incredible. Penei Sewell has been outstanding. Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. I'm sure the Bears would love to have David Montgomery back because, my God, the best 1-2 punch combo in the NFL. I think they want to be nicknamed Sonic and Knuckles. Jack Campbell, the rookie from last year, is still doing incredibly well. Brian Branch, I think it was a bit of a cheap ejection in my opinion, but, I mean, he's been phenomenal, especially with the loss of Aiden Hutchinson. What about this? The running defense did a tremendous job against the Packers. I mean, think about this. Right now, the Lions and especially Jared Goff are killing a bunch of narratives. What happened to the narrative of, well, they're a dome team? They did great against the Green Bay Packers. They did a phenomenal job. Made Jordan Love in that contract not look so great. Well, Dan Campbell takes too many risks. Well, we've seen this year. He's been incredible. Calculated risks. He hasn't really taken anything where we're scratching our heads like, well, that was a big failure. What the hell was he thinking about? A lot, if not all of his risks have been net positives. So for me, there's a reason why I put the Lions in number 1, because they deserved it. Jared Goff's not putting the ball in harm's way. They don't need penalties to let them win games. Hell, in recent history, they've been affected by penalties in a negative way. Look at the Cowboys-Lions game from last year. They don't need penalties. They don't need, they're very careful with the football. They're a consistent team. They're doing weird things, like I mentioned earlier. More touchdowns than incompletions on their winning streak. The Lions are the best team in the NFL. And it's weird to say that, I know. Because Jared Goff, this was another thing, was a contractual let-go piece from the Rams. Sean McVay seemed to be done with him. They were going to move on to Matt Stafford because they just couldn't get it done against teams like the 49ers and the Patriots. So he was just let go to the Lions. And the first year wasn't great. But then finally, Dan Campbell established a culture there. People started to believe in them. They've hit on basically every draft pick that they had since Dan Campbell's got there. Jared Goff looks incredibly efficient. He's living up to his $52 million contract. I think it's around $53 million contract. I mean, what else can we say? The Kansas City Chiefs are great. That's why I put them in number 2. The Lions, hands down, are the number 1 team. You could look at yesterday and say, well, I mean, think about it. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, without their top 2 wide receivers in Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, an offensive line that literally holds on every play. And not, by the way, and it's not a great offensive line. A defense that is actually one of the worst coverage defenses in the NFL. And they brought them to overtime. And if it wasn't for a Todd Bowles extra point call instead of a 2-point conversion, which we'll talk about very shortly, there's a chance the Chiefs could be 7-1 today instead of 8-0. The Chiefs have not had a dominant victory all year. Meanwhile, before this past week, the Lions were blowing teams out by an average margin of 17.3 points per victory. The Chiefs have had basically all one-score games. 7-point win against the Baltimore Ravens, 1-point win against the Bengals, 5-point win against the Falcons, 7-point win against the Los Angeles Chargers. They beat the Saints by 13 points. A 10-point victory against San Francisco where Brock Purdy had 3 interceptions all in Kansas City territory. A 7-point win against the Las Vegas Raiders who just kicked out their entire offensive staff. And then last night, a 6-point overtime victory against a Tampa Bay Buccaneers team that brought them to overtime without their top 2 weapons. And honestly, the defense had one of its worst games this season. They allowed 124 rushing yards, which normally this Chiefs defense does not do. Excuse me, they allowed 95 rushing yards, which they normally don't do. They also didn't force a single turnover, which is the first time in 3 weeks that they haven't forced a turnover. So, it's great. You're undefeated. That's phenomenal. But if you look at the eye test, the Lions look, and in my opinion, are the best team in the NFL. We could argue about it all day long. I don't care. A lot of Chiefs fans were ripping on me about, I'm doing this reviews. Just look at the eye test. The numbers back me up, but the eye test proves it. The offense of the Lions is better than the Chiefs. Yes, they have more weapons. They have a better offensive line. They have a better running attack. Mahomes is the better quarterback, and yes, Andy Reid is the better head coach. But in my opinion, the Lions defensively, right now, culture-wise and offensively, they are the better team. They're more efficient. They're less turnover-prone. They're just the better team in the NFL. The Lions are killing narratives. They're only a dome team. They can't play outside. Well, have this. Not only did they play outside, they played in the pouring rain, and Jared Goff, who a lot of people, and the numbers actually prove it, is not a great outdoor quarterback, played better in worse conditions than Jordan Love did. And Jordan Love was coming back from an injury, which, thank God, I bet against them. I bet against the Packers. I thought the Lions would take care of them, and they did. So, give me the Lions all day. I want to see. And right now, it's looking like a Lions Chiefs Super Bowl, which that could be something. I'm definitely open to that. I think when it comes down to it, if the Lions keep playing as consistent as they have been, I don't think Mahomes will have an opportunity to do what he's done against the Bucs, against the Ravens, against the Bengals. I don't think he'll have that opportunity to go down. Travis Kelce with no one around him, breaks out his own coverage, 15-yard gain, Mahomes back-breaking scramble that he did this season and most of last season. They won't have that opportunity because I think it'll be, a 10-point lead for the Lions. I think they're that good this season. The offensive line has been tremendous. And on top of that, you just add Zadarius Smith. So your pass rush, which is already great, and it did decrease a little bit with the loss of Aiden Hutchinson, but now you add Zadarius Smith to this team. They're the best team in the NFL, in my opinion. With that, I bring in my dad, Stephen Harvey. How are you doing today on this Tuesday?
Doing great. Glad to be here. I listened to your monologue on the Lions, and I tend to agree with it.
Not a lot of people do.
One thing that I would say is Dan Campbell has, I think, done a better coaching job this year than he did last year. He took some calculated risks. We called him Dan Gamble last year because he was going for it on fourth down a lot. This year he hasn't had to because the offense has just been unworldly. They are unbelievable.
Yeah,
they've been blowing teams out. They don't have to do those things, but eventually they're going to have to, I think, because when they get into the playoffs, it's going to get tougher. And there are going to be some close situations there. And will Dan gamble at that point? I don't know. I think that's something to be seen. And will he make the right gambles? Because he really hasn't had to do any gambling yet this year. And he will, I think, when it gets down to brass tacks, when you're playing in the, in the playoffs and maybe in the NFC Championship game or in the Super Bowl, then you're going to be tested there. And what will he come up with then? That's something I'm waiting to see.
I'm saying if the Lions can play consistently, we won't see those opportunities where Mahomes can just, dink and dunk his way to an ultimate victory. I mean, as soon as it got into overtime. And even, let's say, you know what? Let's jump into this game because I do think it's important. Last night's game, Monday Night Football, Chiefs, Buccaneers. The Chiefs were able to drive in overtime after Todd Bowles decided not to go for two and instead elected to kick an extra point, which tied the game at 24 apiece with 27 seconds left, which then Mahomes tried to get him in field goal range. It didn't exactly work. So it was the end of regulation going to overtime. The Chiefs win the coin toss, and in everybody's mind, I feel like everybody thought it'd be over at that point. The Chiefs would find a way to score a touchdown, which they ultimately did. Mahomes, 34 of 44, 291 yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. That's the big one right there. 0 interceptions, while Kareem Hunt is on a roll here. 27 carries, 106 yards. He played great along with a touchdown. Baker Mayfield, 23 of 31, 200 yards flat, 2 touchdowns, no picks as well. The Bucs did not have a very effective running game. A lot of people had a bunch of carries. They did run 5 yards a carry, though. But I want to know, what was your reaction to last night's game? Are you impressed with the Chiefs and how they have somehow remained undefeated this season?
I have 2 takeaways from this game. One for Tampa Bay. They couldn't run the ball. They only had 95 yards, and they couldn't stop the run. Hunt had 106 yards. For the Chiefs, they continue to find a way to win, and they did it again, despite trailing in the second half, which has happened to them every game this season. They've been behind, and they've won 8 straight. Now they're 14 straight going back to last season. It's the heart of a champion. They're on a mission to get back to the Super Bowl. Mahomes had his best game, I think, last night. You mentioned the stats there. He had 3 TD passes, 291 yards. DeAndre Hopkins, 8 receptions, 86 yards, 2 touchdowns. He makes a difference. That guy is an all-pro receiver, and now he's playing with an all-pro cast. He could really make some noise here, and I think he could be the difference maker for the Chiefs. It really solidifies their position and gets them back to the promised land for their chance at a three-peat. The analysis on this game, I think, it comes down to should the Bucs have gone for the 2-point conversion to win the game at the end. Todd Bowles said he only gave it minor thought. The Bucs had lost 4 out of 5 now. The defense have been pushed all over the field by the Chiefs' offense. They were tired. I think he made a mistake. I think he should have gone for it because the Chiefs won the overtime coin toss. They marched right down the field. Mahomes 5 of 5. They went to victory. And I mentioned they've trailed in every game this season. Hopkins had a significant impact on the game. The 8 for 86, 2 TDs, and I think Mahomes. It was his best game at 34 of 44, 291, and 3 TDs. Chiefs, the Bucs couldn't stop the Chiefs in the fourth quarter. Those 14 points. I do give the Bucs a lot of credit. I think they were playing banged up, man. They've lost. They have the 2 best weapons, Evans and Godwin, both out. Playing with Sterling Shepard. Baker Mayfield, I thought, had a very good game, even though he had 200 yards passing. He ran the ball. He made good decisions. They were in that game. They had it tied at the end of the game. I think they should have. Tried for the 2-point. They've lost 4 out of 5. Going for that on a gutsy call at the very end, I don't think anybody would have, if they missed it. I don't think most people would have said, "Yeah, I still think it was the right thing to do," given how banged up they are and how tired they were at the end of that game after the Chiefs have been up and down the field the whole game. So I'm interested to know your thoughts on that.
A lot of people are ripping on Todd Bowles and for not obviously going for 2. I think I'm in the minority of people here that says I don't think it would have made a difference. Yes.
Oh, they lost the game.
Right. Is it smart when it comes to the Chiefs to try to win in regulation or to be the last team to hold the football? Absolutely. 100%. And the way this game was going, the Bucs did a very, very good job at going up and down the field against one of the best defenses in the NFL. Coming out of the second half, though, the difference was pretty stark because you come out of the second half, you score a touchdown, great, and then you force a punt. The next 3 possessions, field goal, punt for the Bucs. On the other side, the Chiefs, a 6.5-minute touchdown drive. Then the third possession in the second half, an 8.5-minute touchdown drive. You're taking away basically an entire quarter of play on 2 drives. They dominated time of possession. Nearly 41 minutes for the Chiefs, 25 minutes for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So the Chiefs dominated time of possession. The running game, Kareem Hunt played a phenomenal game. I was very, very impressed with the Chiefs, but I was more so impressed with the Bucs because they are down their number 1 wide receiver, their number 2 wide receiver. The quarterback rankings are very, very stark. I mean, you look at the reputation of Patrick Mahomes, and Baker Mayfield is increasing, but he's still Baker Mayfield. The two really don't compare. The running attacks have not been very close. The Chiefs have a better running attack than the Bucs do. Offensive line-wise, the Chiefs' interior offensive line is still one of the best in the NFL, while the Bucs don't have a great offensive line. Defensively, the Chiefs have a top 3 defense in the NFL, while the Bucs, I think they're barely scratching.
Their defense is poor.
I can tell you the exact ranking.
Their passing defense is terrible.
Yeah, right now they're 30th in total defense, 30th in passing defense.
That had something to do with Mahomes' night, maybe.
Yeah. And I would say that, I think there was a little bit of a scare with Mahomes' classic scramble and then get right up to the line of scrimmage and then decide to pass it for a touchdown. There's a little bit of a scare there, something to do with his ankle. But, yeah, no, I think the acquisition of DeAndre Hopkins, I think all Titans fans and the rest of the NFL are yelling at Titans saying, why the hell did you give DeAndre Hopkins to the Kansas City Chiefs and add another weapon on the Chiefs' arsenal there? I think that today, Marshawn Lattimore, the Chiefs were very interested in trying to get Lattimore, which would have just been a gut punch to the rest of the NFL, getting another great defensive piece. But for me, my reaction was kind of, should they have gone for 2? Yes. But I think on that touchdown play, that bootleg out to the right to the tight end, I think that was their 2-point conversion play. Are you going to run it again? You shouldn't run the football against that defensive line, against what you've been doing so far in this game. Running the football was not an option. Even
I think Baker Mayfield is a great creator. I mean, when he's back there, the play breaks down, he finds a way to make something out of not much. I think you give him the ball and give him the option. Roll out, pass it, or run it. I really think they should have gone for it on that. One other point I have to make on the Chiefs, Travis Kelce, 14 receptions, 100 yards.
Yeah.
He's 35 years old now. I don't know. Maybe they're using him a lot lately after they lost some of their wide receivers. Maybe Hopkins can take some of the pressure off him. But last night, 14 catches for Kelce, 8 for Hopkins. Worthy had nothing. Nothing. Is he a bust?
No,
I don't know.
No.
Why? What's the story? Did they even throw him one? I mean, he had no catches.
Take what the game gives you. If Worthy's just not getting catches, well, find another thing. The Bucs couldn't really stop the run at all. Kareem Hunt's doing a phenomenal job. If the Bucs are going to play in a crappy zone coverage and Kelce's going to be open with no one really around him, keep feeding it to Kelce. I think that's exactly what they did. So to take what the game gives you.
Yeah, Otten had a nice game for the Bucs.
Oh yeah, no, he's been having a great season, underrated season, I would say.
Yeah.
But no, I thought the Bucs played surprisingly well. I mean, we talked about it on Friday, I think we talked about it on Friday. The Bucs were a 9.5-point underdog. How? The Chiefs have been barely winning by 1 score, and they're somehow 9.5-point underdogs when the Bucs have been playing this well without their top 2 talents. So we both had Bucs plus 9.5. That was probably one of the easier bets of the week, just because the Bucs do play extremely hard, and Baker Mayfield, like you mentioned, is a creator. So for me, this was an easy pick.
Well, I had the Chiefs winning, and I said they wouldn't cover.
Exactly. Me and you both had the same thing. Bucs plus 9.5 would cover that point spread. Yeah. The Chiefs don't blow out teams. This is a methodical, time of possession type of team, and nearly nearly what I've been saying came into fruition. If a team just plays efficient enough, they could win this game. And I don't want to be that guy. I really don't want to be labeled that guy, but I'm going to point out something that I'm not alone in saying. I want the NFL to just assign one ref to stare at Jawan Taylor. Just stare at him. Because even in live action, not even on a replay, he false starts on nearly every play. The second to last play before the touchdown in overtime, even the announcers called out that he was starting early. On the touchdown to DeAndre Hopkins, the second one, I noticed it immediately while the play was happening, not even on a replay. He's moving early. Look, just assign a ref just to stare at Jawan Taylor. Just stare at him. Yeah. Because he does get off a half second early. And it's not like, I think it's not egregious where he's going a second and a half late, or early rather, but it's there. You could see it live action right there. Just assign a ref just to stare at Taylor. And I don't want to sound like, oh, the refs are screwing over the end. No, all I'm saying is that anybody, fans, media, even now the announcers, just look at Jawan Taylor. He's already one of the guys that is one of the most penalized offensive linemen when it comes to false starts. Just look at him. He does move early. So I'm not saying the refs cost the Bucs this game, but call it fair at least.
Mm-hmm. What do you think about the Bucs' chances the rest of the way? I mean, they're 4-5 now.
I think that because they're in the NFC and the NFC South, there's only one other competition. The Saints right now are just dead. The Panthers, a surprising victory over the New Orleans Saints, but the Saints did just fire Dennis Allen. When it comes to the Bucs, though, they have a very difficult. They really have one very tough game in this next week versus the 49ers. But then it's at Giants, at Panthers, versus Raiders. Chargers also could be a difficult one. At Cowboys, Dak Prescott is probably not even going to be there. Who knows? And then versus Panthers, versus Saints. So really, they have one incredibly difficult matchup, another one at Chargers, which could be very difficult. But then the rest of the way, I think it'll be pretty easy. So for me, I would give them 2 more losses, 10-7.
Well, they might sneak in then.
I think that does give them a pretty good shot at making it into the playoffs, but because they lost 2 against the Atlanta Falcons, winning the division is going to be very difficult, although not impossible, because the Falcons still have the Broncos, Chargers, Vikings, and Commanders still to play. They're 6-3, Bucs are 4-5.
Yeah. I'd be surprised if they catch the Falcons. I think they're better chances of wild card.
Falcons need, so if the Bucs did exactly what I said, so they lose 2 games, the Falcons need to lose at least 3 for the Bucs to take them in the division, and it's going to be very difficult to even make the playoffs. It's
going to be tough because the Falcons beat the Bucs twice now, so the tiebreakers are all against the Bucs.
Well, even in order to make the playoffs for the Bucs, think about the NFC North. Vikings are still in position to make it.
Green
Bay's in position to make it. The Eagles are probably going to make it. And then the NFC West is filled with a bunch of around 500 teams that all can make it. Whether it be the 49ers, the Rams, the Cardinals right now are number 1 in the division. The Seahawks are still fighting there. So to make the playoffs for the Bucs is going to be a bit of a challenge, but I think you put them up against the Seattle, you put them up against an Arizona, you put them up against a Dallas now, you put them up against the Vikings now. I would probably take the Buccaneers. I know they're down their top 2 weapons, but hey, look what just happened last night. One of the best defenses in the NFL, down your top 2 weapons. You sent them to overtime and actually had an opportunity to win the game if your defense could stop Mahomes, although this is why I said I don't think it would have made a difference. 27 seconds, 3 timeouts, you need a field goal. You needed about 20, 25 yards for your kicker to probably make a field goal to win the game anyway. So that's why I said it wouldn't really have made much of a difference anyway. So, let's get to our next topic here. So, a bit of breaking news yesterday. Dak Prescott is likely to miss multiple weeks, according to reports, with a hamstring injury, which he suffered on a scramble in the third quarter in their, I would say, decently embarrassing loss to the Atlanta Falcons. Dak Prescott was playing pretty well, completing 18 to 24 passes for 133 yards and a touchdown. He also ran for a season-high 30 yards. It looks like it'll be Cooper Rush to take over the starting position with Dak Prescott, likely to land on IR, as said by Jerry Jones. I believe it was today or yesterday on 105.3, the Fan, Dallas Cowboys radio station. I want to know, do you think the Cowboys season is officially over with Dak Prescott likely to go on IR and miss at least the next 4 weeks?
Yeah. Well, then now they're 3-5 without Dak Prescott going forward for who knows how long. Last 3 years, they won 12 regular season games each of the past 3 years. They probably are in more danger of losing 12 games this season now, I think. I think it's possible. They have a tough remaining schedule, although they have 6 home games, but they played terrible at home.
Don't think they have a win at home this year.
Yeah, so they're playing the Eagles at home next week. That's going to be a tough one. The Texans, that'll be tough. Then they're at the Commanders. They have the Giants at home. They probably should win that one. You got the Bengals. The Bengals are rallying now. They're getting themselves back into the mix. They'll be at the Panthers. They probably ought to win that one. They have the Bucs at home, and then they close out the then they're at Eagles, and then they close out with the Commanders at home. So that's a tough schedule. I don't see them making the playoffs, Nate. I don't think it's going to happen.
Oh, I agree.
This defense is still banged up. They've had their bye week already. They don't have anything to recover. They can't recover from that. Will Dak Prescott even be back if they're 5-6 games under 500 when he's ready to come back? I think there's a lot of question marks there. They don't have much cap flexibility. They did trade for a guy recently. What's his name?
Jonathan Mingo.
Oh, yeah, Mingo.
Traded for him today.
Yeah. So he's going to be playing with them, but he's not really a big name. I don't think he's going to come in and change things for them. They've got their cap flexibility is terrible, but after they paid Prescott and Lamb, they still have Parsons. His contract's up at the end of the season. Parsons hasn't played that much this year. He's been hurt. Jones had said they might be buyers at the trade deadline, but I think that's doubtful now, except for this Mingo guy that they picked up. They should probably be sellers, given Dak's injury. Maybe they should just pack it in, be sellers, get themselves some cap space, play some of the young players, get ready for next year now. I think their power rankings dropped down to number 23. My takeaway is it feels like the Cowboys season slipped away.
Oh, no, it's long gone, especially when you're paying Dak Prescott $60 million to play poorly and now not play at all. CeeDee Lamb also banged up. It looks like there's an opportunity for him to play this upcoming week, but I don't think it'll really matter. You also got Jonathan Mingo, and you spent a 4th-round pick to go get him, when Jonathan Mingo has been largely ineffective the past 2 seasons. This is going to be a major problem. The Dallas Cowboys, it's time to ship it in. And the fact that Jerry Jones decided to be, let's be buyers at the trade deadline when the same problems exist. You're banged up, injured, you can't stop the run, your pass game is ineffective, you have no running game, and you decided to add pieces. It's like pouring gasoline on a large bonfire. It's just going to continue to burn until there's nothing left to burn. This team has a very high likelihood of maybe winning 5-6 games. And that might be pushing it, because this is just bad. The Cowboys are bad all through what's happened so far. Defense can't stop anybody. Offensive line is bad. Tyler Guyton right now looks like a bust. He keeps holding, penalized. I mean, it's not great at all. No running game. Rico Dowdle's not that great. Could he be good as a 2 or a 3 running back? Maybe, but they have no run game. Dak Prescott, he played decently well in this game against one of the worst pressure rated defenses in the NFL in the Atlanta Falcons. And what's crazy is the Falcons are actually doing a great job at pressuring Dak Prescott. They actually did a phenomenal job at that. And they are one of, if not the worst, quarterback pressure rate teams in the NFL. So where the Cowboys stand. Think about how they missed. Think about the amount of players they missed out on. The first one would obviously be Derrick Henry. And if you take a look, the Cowboys' top 2 ball carriers in Dowdle and Ezekiel Elliott have 407 total rushing yards. Derrick Henry himself has 1,052. 1,052. And not only that, how about rushing touchdowns? The Cowboys have 3 combined rushing touchdowns. How about a team that we didn't expect to be a great rushing team, the Commanders, with a bad offensive line and a rookie quarterback? They have 15 rushing touchdowns this season. And going into the year, we thought the offensive line would be a massive asterisk and like, hey, this is going to be one of the issues on offense. The offensive line and Jaden Daniels' size. That might cause problems. and it really hasn't. Jaden Daniels' escapability is incredible. His athleticism, I think, is shocking to a lot of people, just the level of it. His consistency has been great. The running game led by Brian Robinson, who's been banged up, and Austin Eckler, who led one of the worst rushing attacks last season, is doing tremendous this season. I think right now the Cowboys, this just proves another reason why Jerry Jones's GM abilities are one of the worst in the NFL.
You think Mike McCarthy's done?
Oh, absolutely. 100%. If your owner's calling out your play calling, and now your quarterback's banged up, you have no running attack, you're led to Cooper Rush to be your starting quarterback now, CeeDee Lamb's banged up, and you have no wide receiver too, your head coach is done. And the defense can't stop anybody.
Well, you think they're done, so they should mail it in. Why not let Trey Lance play?
And that's exactly the point I was going to get. Cooper Rush, we know what it is. Unless you think you still go out and win this when clearly the two teams above you are better. The Commanders look phenomenal, and the Eagles are hitting a very hot streak. Now it's all about draft picks. You need draft picks. And why couldn't you use that fourth rounder, which you've actually been doing relatively well in drafting? Why couldn't you use that fourth rounder for someone better? Instead, you got Jonathan Mingo, who, let me just bring up the numbers real quick. Do I have it on this sheet? No, I do not. I have it on the other sheet. Let's see. By the way, the Panthers select him 39 overall in 2023. He's done nothing. 12 receptions, 121 receiving yards, and no touchdowns in 5 starts this season. And this is a guy you think is going to change your culture? This is the guy who's going to be the difference maker? No, especially with
maybe,
Cooper Rush.
Maybe he'll have more. Well, with Cooper Rush, yeah, I agree. Maybe he'll have some more opportunities with Lamb over on the other side. He's got a bona fide number one there to play opposite of. The Cowboys have had a good passing game with Dak Prescott the past 3 years. Isn't so hot this year. Maybe with him out there, it could improve it some. But I agree. I don't think he's a difference maker. A big difference maker.
I don't think he's even a factor. Unless you make him your primary target, he's going to do essentially nothing. In my mind, it's the exact same thing, although obviously the age is different, that Randall Cobb was to Aaron Rodgers. Or to, I guess, Zach Wilson would be the quarterback since Rodgers got hurt. But it's the same thing. He's not. Is he a separator? No. Does he create big-time plays for you? No. You see, the Panthers select him 39. You're giving away a fourth-round pick to a guy that's created basically zero production on the Carolina Panthers. So I don't think Mingo will have a difference in how this offense works at all. I think, like you mentioned, starting Trey Lance would be the smart thing to do because you already know what you have in Cooper Rush. When he played in 2022 with Dak banged up, he went 4-1. And now you have Trey Lance, who needs the reps, who the last time we saw him threw 5 interceptions in a game. It was 4 or 5 interceptions in the preseason game. He needs reps. And if you're bringing him in to be maybe the future starter of your team, although with Dak Prescott's $60 million
I don't think
contract,
that. I don't think they should think of him as the future starter. I think they should
have him.
I think they should play him. So if he plays well, then you could trade him. Trade him to somebody.
You're going to get a 7th round pick at most. You gave away a 4th round
No, but if
pick.
he has the opportunity to play and he plays well, which is questionable, I admit. But if that did happen, then he would have value because he was drafted number 3? Third overall, and he has the skill. He has the tools. He's got the tools. He just has not been able to play enough. That's the argument. Play enough to really learn the game. Learn the game. So and he did get some preseason time. He had one game there. He threw 5 or 6 interceptions, which is horrible. But I'd say put him out there. I think that would make some sense right now. The Cowboys season's over. They should play for the draft picks and try to get Lance out there. And if he could play well, then he would be somebody they could trade to get a high draft pick too.
I mean, how high are you thinking? Because they went over to the 49ers and gave away a 4th round pick. And then Trey Lance goes on and says after the trade, well, I wanted to go to a team where I have the opportunity to play.
Yeah, okay.
He's been the 3rd string
quarterback. Let's say he came in. The Cowboys' remaining schedule. Let's say he came in. He probably wouldn't beat the Eagles.
I think the first opportunity would be versus Giants.
The Giants, right?
Or at Carolina.
You could the Giants and the Panthers.
I don't see another.
I don't know where the Bucs are going to be down the line
that's
here.
Sunday
We'll
Night
have to
Football
wait and
too.
See. They might be out of it by then too. I don't know.
Then we're at week 16. The season's basically over at that point.
No, there's 2 more games after that.
Right, but like,
so let's say he went in. Maybe he goes in and he plays and he's maybe he's 4-5. You know, then he wins 4 games. They would have interest. There would be a lot of interest in him.
Trey Lance with this Dallas Cowboys roster is not winning 4 games.
You don't think they can beat the Giants and the Panthers? That's 2, right?
That's 2.
Okay, so then they
go up against the Commanders.
They have 6 home games.
They haven't won a single game at home.
Yeah, but maybe that can change.
And think about this, right? They were down 28-3 against the Ravens until the Ravens did what they normally do in the fourth quarter and blow leads. They lost 44-19 at home to the Saints, who right now just fired their head coach, and Michael Thomas, former Saints receiver, is calling out Derek Carr for injuring players. And the most recent home game you played, 47-9 loss to the Detroit Lions. And now you're going up against the Eagles and Texans, which have 2 good running attacks and 2 very good quarterbacks. Then you're at Commanders, who have a great running attack.
You know what? I think they should start Trey Lance.
I agree.
Why not?
I agree.
mean, Cooper Rush. At least I think more fans would come to watch Trey Lance play than Cooper Rush
because he's more exciting.
Yeah,
he's much more exciting. But here's the thing: they're not going to. Because Jerry Jones still believes they're all in this.
Oh, well, maybe.
He said after the loss this past week, he's disappointed, but he believes he has guys in the locker room who can win.
Well, maybe that's true, but I think that after they lose to the Eagles and the Texans and maybe the Commanders, I think you'll see Cooper Rush, Trey Lance in there, and I think they'll keep Dak Prescott on the sidelines the rest of the year.
You think Jerry Jones, after spending $60 million per year, 4 years, $240 million, with $231 of those million guaranteed, he's going to allow Mike McCarthy to sit back and play Trey Lance over a $60 million a year quarterback?
I think if they go, but listen,
he believes they can still win it because they just were buyers at the trade
Prescott
deadline.
is out 4 weeks and they lose all 4 of those games, then there's nothing left. There's no point to have him even play. And why would you bring him out there and get him hurt again?
Because it's Jerry Jones.
Well, maybe you're right. You could be right. I don't know. We'll see. I just think Trey Lance ought to get some snaps now.
I completely agree. I'm just looking at the fact that Jerry Jones says that we could still go out and win this game. We have guys in the locker room who could still get it done when everybody is staring at the situation saying they don't win at home and they were undefeated last year at home. Dak Prescott's not playing good enough. We have no running game. Offensive line keeps getting penalized. That is not very good. Our defense now isn't that great anymore. We're 3-5 with bad losses against some very bad teams. But no, Jerry Jones cares more about facility tours than he does about winning football games. At least that's what it appears to be. All right, we're going to take a quick break, but coming up, the Raiders. What's going on in Las Vegas? Their entire offensive staff is no longer employed. We're going to talk about that as well as it's looking like a very good rematch between the Bengals and the Ravens. Who do we have on Thursday Night Football? We'll talk about that right after this break.
Traveling can be a nightmare. Why? You can't watch your favorite shows abroad. You can't trust public Wi-Fi spots anymore. And when you return, roaming bills kill your vibe. Unless you get a NordVPN and Saley deal. NordVPN will increase your privacy online. And Saley, a global eSIM data app, will save you from those unexpected roaming charges. Grab the 2-year NordVPN deal with 76% off and get up to 20 gigabytes Saley eSIM data gift.
Whether you're just discovering your voice or taking your show to the next level, you know what the world needs to hear. All you have to do is say it. With Spotify, set up your podcast. Your food podcast. Your mindfulness podcast. Your never thought you'd get this far podcast. And watch those sparks fly.
I put a picture of the content.
Drop the episode anywhere people listen. And find out who they're cooking with. Where they're finding inner balance, and why they love your show. You're already a creator. Now you can create, connect, and get paid for your passion with one single free tool. Spotify for podcasters. Talk where the world listens.
Welcome back to the Harvey Hour. My name is Stephen Harvey. It is great to have you in today on a Tuesday. As always, I'm joined alongside my dad, Stephen Harvey. Let's get into our next topic of today's show. So, the offensive staff of the Las Vegas Raiders is currently unemployed after their 41-24 loss against the Cincinnati Bengals. Antonio Pierce was leading this team to a 2-2 record as the first season as the full-time head coach of the Raiders, but now has completely plummeted to a 2-7 record. And after the firings, he was talking to the media, and this is what he had to say about the firing of his QB coach, offensive coordinator, and offensive line coach. Take a listen.
Yeah, just performance results and production. Just wasn't heading the direction I wanted it to go. And I'll use the next, 24 to 48 hours to sit down with the staff and figure out who's going to call the offense going forward. I'm using the bye week to look at everything.
Was this your decision, or did anyone influence your decision-making process?
100% my decision.
So I want to know, are you surprised that the Las Vegas Raiders would fire essentially their entire offensive staff only 9 weeks in?
No, a little bit. I mean, all these coaches were first-year coaches for him. I mean, he picked a new staff, and he's decimating it 9 weeks into his first season as the head coach. I think he might be getting a little ahead of himself. This is the Raiders' mantra, though. They have now switched coordinators or head coaches for the fourth time in 5 years. So, they're a revolving door. It's for coaching staff at the Raiders. I don't know why anybody would want to go there and play for Antonio Pierce, who appears to, he flip-flops his quarterbacks all the time. I think he's done a poor job with the mixed messaging. First, he says the players are making business decisions out there, not playing hard enough. And then after this game, which they got creamed in, he's complimenting them, saying, the guys kept battling to the very end. I appreciate them for it. It's a group effort. It's a team effort. We all got to find a way to do better. We will pinpoint and look at a lot of things, from coaches to play calling, to players, to execution, to situations, so that we can do a better job and put us in a position in the fourth quarter to actually have a chance to win instead of playing catch up. So, they've got to bye this week, so maybe they can figure some of this out. I don't know, but I'd say he's all over the place. And in terms of a head coach, it's a very unstable situation there.
Well, that's what happens when you have a bad team, and that's what we said all the way back in August, that this team is not built to win. You have a shaky quarterback situation of Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell, and when those are your top two choices, you're already starting as a bottom 10 team. I don't care about the amount of weapons, and that's the excuse that we got. They're too good to be this bad. As you always say, the quarterback handles the ball on every single play. Gardner Minshew is not good enough to lead this team to even a 500 record. Aiden O'Connell, which Gardner Minshew got benched for, he hasn't lived up to what expectations were. They're 2-7. I think 6 or 7 other teams are tied at 2-7. The Raiders are a bad NFL team. Yes, they're banged up with injuries. But even before a lot of these injuries, like Christian Wilkins, offensive line's always banged up. They weren't a good team to begin with. Devontae Adams. People were saying, they can never trade Devontae Adams. Did anyone look at the receiver show on, I think, Netflix? He was literally about to force a trade with Jimmy Garoppolo last year. So how could you believe, I'm content here? No, not at all. I'm not saying Antonio Pierce is a bad head coach. Has he said some stuff like the business decisions, like the Mahomes rules, that aren't exactly great things to say to the media? Absolutely. But I'm going to give him a pass because this is his first time being named the full-time head coach of an NFL team. There's rumors going around about, because Brady's the minority owner, that Mark Davis will say, you know what, how about we go out and get Bill Belichick to come to this? Belichick is not going to be the Raiders head coach. Way too much instability for Las Vegas. Does he have the Emperor Palpatine, type of persona that kind of fits with Las Vegas? Sure. But there's way too much instability for an 8-time Super Bowl winning coach to go over to Las Vegas and make that team at least relevant. So for me, yeah, this is a bad team. Defense is not great. They allowed Joe Burrow to throw 5 touchdowns and look phenomenal. The offense is anemic, no running game. Alexander Mattison, who was the backup to Zamir White, has done better than your starting running back. Offensive line's not great. There's a chance now Desmond Ridder will be your starter, which will be your third quarterback. And everybody knows, as the saying goes, if you have 2 quarterbacks, you have actually 0. How about this? If Desmond Ridder's the starting quarterback, there is a high likelihood, and I'm going to break the schedule right now, that there's an opportunity for you not to win another game in a very long time. I mean, look at this. Yes, your bye week is now. But think about this. Dolphins right now, I think they're going to hit some sort of hot streak with Tua back. How about the Broncos? One of the best defenses. I think Bo Nix is hitting a very, very nice streak. They did get blown out by the Ravens. They're not on the same wavelength as the Baltimore Ravens. No one expected them to be. Hell, if they win one more game, they actually surpass their Vegas over-under. They were 5.5 going into this year. So I think the Broncos will give them trouble. The Chiefs, they're obviously probably going to lose again to the Kansas City Chiefs. The Buccaneers, I think Baker Mayfield's going to play tremendous. I think they'll be able to take down the Raiders. The Falcons, I think, will do a very nice job. The Jaguars have an opportunity to beat you as well. Who else? The New Orleans Saints, there's your opportunity to win another game. And then the Chargers have one of the best defenses in the NFL. Paint me the wins here. This was a team that Raiders fans ripped on me for by calling them a bottom 3 team in the NFL. Show me the wins. Show me how, as a couple people said, show me how they're an 8-9 team, 9-8 team, a playoff team. There's no way this Raiders team currently constructed can win more than 5 games. So the person who bet me $1,000 for the Raiders to be one of the worst teams in the NFL, I'll take you up on that offer because they are one of the worst teams in the NFL. There's no way that with Jacoby Myers as your wide receiver 1, no running game, bad offensive line, quarterback could be Desmond Ridder, defense is falling apart even though Max Crosby's still out there, head coach that just fired his entire offensive staff, that they're going to somehow turn it around. So please, anybody out there, Raiders fan, NFL fan, Chargers fan, Chiefs fan, Tampa Bay Bucks fan, Arizona Cardinals, tell me how the Raiders team can at least make the playoffs. Hell, even get to a 500 record. I'll even ask you, this is not a 500 team, is it?
No. And we said that at the beginning of the season. Right now, their power rankings number 31. And they have some injuries. Aiden O'Connell's out. The center, Andre James, is out. They traded Devontae Adams, their best receiver, to the Jets. They lost their left tackle, Colton Miller, and the backup, Andreas Pete. And they during the Bengals game, my takeaway on the Raiders, the roster just is not competitive enough to compete even in their own division. There was no upgrade at quarterback. They haven't gotten enough from Minshew. His 8 interceptions, 5 fumbles. He's been benched 3 separate times. I think one thing that's interesting that they've done, they brought in Norv Turner as assistant head coach. His son is on the offensive staff, Scott Turner. Maybe he's going to step up to be the offensive coordinator, and his father will mentor him. That could be a plus for the Raiders. We'll have to wait and see.
There's no way going into this season you could look at that offensive roster and see Gardner Minshew, Aiden O'Connell as your as by the way, a quarterback competition between those two, and say 500 record. And not only that, let's get into it. What makes this even worse is Luke Getsy, your OC going into this season, who did just get fired. They were struggling with his offense. This is the same guy who a bunch of Bears fans were saying ruined Justin Fields, which seems to be at least partially true. That was your offensive coordinator. Your offensive line coach, which people said, with Colton Miller, yes, Colton Miller is a very good left tackle, but he's not great. He's not a top 5 tackle in the NFL. Offensively, this is how bad it's gotten. Beginning today, they ranked 29th in the NFL in total offense, 280 total yards a game. That's a problem. Last in rushing yards, no surprise there with Zamir White and Alexander Mattison with 76.9. 26th in scoring, they score barely above 18 points a game. This is not let's bring up the schedule one more time. Unbiased opinion.
I don't see any wins there except maybe the Saints.
So you're saying that they could end the year 3-14.
Could be.
I don't see 5 wins here. Unless you're saying they somehow beat the Broncos. But Bo Nix,
I don't think so.
Through one half Actually, before like the very end of the first half touchdown the Ravens got. Through 1 3/4 quarters, looked toe-to-toe with Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore offense.
Yeah.
They were going right at it.
Yeah, they got,
and then
they
the
got trounced
separation,
at the
second,
end.
the separation.
41 to
took place.
10 was not a very competitive game. No.
But through the first 1 3/4 quarters, it was very competitive watching that game. I think Tua will bounce back. He needs to get something going. The Chiefs are currently undefeated. The Bucs just took him to overtime as well. The Atlanta Falcons go up against some of these teams, beat the Bucs.
Maybe the
twice.
Jaguars.
Jaguars do have one of the worst pass defenses in the NFL, but at that point, what's going to happen?
Even then, they'd only have 4
Peterson
wins.
may not even be the head coach at that point.
Even then, they would only have 4 wins.
And then the Saints, I give you, and then the Chargers have one
They're
of the
not
best
going to win the
defenses
Chargers
in the NFL.
game. That last game for the Chargers is going to be important. They're probably a playoff, getting into the playoffs for them.
I understand. Raiders fans look at, maybe Jack Jones. And by the way, Jack Jones has done a tremendous job at jumping screen passes and picking them off for pick six. He did that against Joe Burrow in this game. And you look at Max Crosby, he's one of the best pass rushers in the NFL. And going into this year, Christian Wilkins, who a bunch of teams, like for instance, the Dolphins just let him go. Didn't really, create competition to try to retain him. You can look at Brock Bowers and be like, hey, we got a really good tight end, and Michael Mayer, who, not bad, but he's been injured large parts of this year. But you have Devontae Adams, who campaigned for Antonio Pierce, but a couple weeks in realized that this is just a bad situation. You can't go in, I understand that some Raiders fans might be intrigued by this idea, but look at the rest of the NFL. Look at the rest of the AFC. How about this? Look at the rest of your own division first. Look at just the competition. The Chargers we knew were going to be better. The Chiefs just won their second straight Super Bowl. I think you look at the Broncos, they were a promising team with a rookie quarterback, and they have one of the best offensive head coaches in NFL history in Sean Payton. So were they going to be as poor as they were last year? There was a chance. I think that with Bo Nix, once again, they've won 5 games. Their over-under for Vegas was 5.5. I'd say they probably go 7-10, which actually is looking pretty likely, which would be very impressive for Bo Nix and that offensive roster, which really doesn't have a lot of weapons. The Raiders are just not a good team. And there's no animosity because we're not Chiefs fans, we're not Chargers fans, we're not Broncos fans. So where's the bias coming in?
There isn't.
There isn't any.
It's just objective analysis.
You don't even need to look at the rest of the NFL. Look at within your own division and say, how are you going to make the playoffs?
Yeah.
With the Chargers, who have a massive upgraded head coach, and the Justin Herbert is only going to get better, and you drafted the best offensive lineman in the draft. Then you go up against the Chiefs, who just won the second straight Super Bowl, and you have a somewhat stable rookie quarterback with the Denver Broncos. The Raiders are just not a good team. It's not a good team. All right, let's get to our final topic of today's show, which is the Cincinnati Bengals and the Baltimore Ravens. They will rematch. The last time we saw them go up against one another, it was a fierce battle with the Ravens coming out on top, thanks to a 51-yard run by Derrick Henry in overtime to set up the game-winning field goal, which ultimately ended in the Ravens winning 41-38. Both quarterbacks, Lamar Jackson as well as Joe Burrow, played extremely well in this game, with Lamar Jackson going 26 of 42 for 348 yards, 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, while Joe Burrow went 30 of 39 for 392 yards, 5 touchdowns, 1 interception. This is going to be a tremendous matchup. Thursday Night Football, I want to know, do you think the Bengals could take, by the way, 6.5-point favorites to the Baltimore Ravens. Do you think that the Bengals can get their revenge after a crushing overtime loss all the way back? I believe this was week 5. Do you think the Bengals can get it done on Thursday?
My takeaway is at 4-5, the Bengals have climbed back into playoff race and are relevant again. The power ranking's 20, which is down there, but lately they've been playing a lot better. Each of the previous 3 seasons, they've been 5-4 at the 9-week mark. They're 4-5 this year, so they're 1 game behind that. I think I'm surprised at the 6.5-point spread, given the way the teams played in the first matchup. I don't think that the Ravens will cover. I do think they're going to win. And I've got the score at a high-scoring game at 34-31. You look at last week, the Bengals beat the Raiders 41-21. Baltimore beat Denver 41-10. And the Ravens have won 6 of 7 at home. You look at Lamar, he's 68.2% completion, 2,379 yards, 20 TDs, 2 interceptions, 120.7 quarterback rating. Not bad. Not bad. And this past week, he was 16 and 19, 84% completion, 280 yards, and 3 TDs. And that's not the only great player they got on the team. They got Derrick Henry, 168 carries, 1,052 yards, 11 touchdowns. He's had 12 plays of 20 yards or more. The guy is he's right up there with Lamar in terms of if you want to talk about MVP contention. They were after the game, they were interviewing both Henry and Jackson, and Henry said he's MP3, MV3, most valuable player for the third time. We'll have to wait and see about that. But so on the Bengals side, Burrow, he could be an MVP candidacy if he keeps playing the way he's been playing lately. 70.2% completion percentage, 2,244 yards, 20 TDs, 4 interceptions, 108 quarterback rating. Raiders last week, against the Raiders last week, 22 of 39, 251 yards, 5 touchdowns, 1 interception. He's been going to Jamar Chase. He's had 55 receptions for 717 yards, 13 yards a catch, 7 touchdowns. So I think this is going to be a close game. And I think that it will be fun to watch. Some of the Thursday night games, so-so. But, I think given the way the the Bengals have bounced back from 0-3 start, and Burrow operating at near MVP level, even with T. Higgins missing, I think it's going to be good. I think that I'm skeptical about the Bengals' playoff chances, given that they have not beaten any of the league's heavyweights. They have no victories against winning teams. Their remaining schedule is pretty tough. They got the Ravens. Of course, that's a very tough game. At the Chargers, it's going to be tough. They play the Steelers at home. And then the Cowboys, they should be able to win that one at Cowboys. At Titans, they ought to win that one. At the Browns at home, they ought to win that one. Probably can beat the Broncos, although we'll see how the Broncos are playing by then. And then at the Steelers. So they got to find 6 wins in there, I think. 6-4, 10-7 to have a shot at the playoffs. I'd say maybe they can beat the Chargers, the Steelers once, the Cowboys, the Titans, the Browns, and the Broncos to get there. But that's not going to be easy. The Ravens, they've got the power ranking as number 4 now. Some skepticism given that they give up a lot of points in the fourth quarter. I mean, that's still a problem for them. And they've lost to 2 last-place teams this year. How'd they let that happen? They tend to play down to their competition and play well against the better teams, which might be good for them because they have a tough schedule. They'll play better against the good teams. My takeaway: Baltimore 34, Cincinnati 31, but the Ravens don't cover the point spread.
Well, I said, I think a year or 2 ago, that when fully healthy, I would take Joe Burrow as the best quarterback in the NFL. Now, obviously, some things have changed, like one particular quarterback winning multiple Super Bowls, but I think the level of play of Joe Burrow has remained relatively consistent when healthy. And he's done his best job with T. Higgins being injured. Offensive line, obviously, is not great. Running game is very ineffective, although Chase Brown has picked it up, and they actually got Khalil Herbert today, which I think will be much improved with Zach Moss being out indefinitely with a neck issue when they got for Joe Mixon from last year. And the defense has been pretty abysmal through large parts of this season. They ranked 19th in total defense, while 25th in points allowed. I'm taking Joe Burrow to win again, because if it wasn't for a botched snap for a rookie punter on a field goal, the Bengals would have won in Week 5. Joe Burrow played tremendous in that game. And you could look at, he had an interception. Didn't matter. It didn't matter. Everything before that botched snap did not matter. It didn't matter that Joe Burrow could have led down in the fourth quarter to go and win the game. Didn't matter. It really didn't matter. If you just don't botch the snap from a rookie punter and let Evan McPherson kick at least a reliable field goal, that's perfectly fine. And it didn't even matter that they ran it 3 straight times right before then. when Joe Burrow had the hot hand in the passing game. Didn't matter. For up until that point, the fact that they were in position to kick a field goal was all that mattered. And if the rookie punter did not botch the snap, my guess would be Ravens would have lost that game. Probably. Instead, you missed the field goal. Derrick Henry breaks free for a 50-yard run. You kick the game-winning field goal. Everybody goes crazy. Ravens continue their hot streak at that time. So for me, I'm going for the Cincinnati Bengals. I understand that they actually had their worst defensive game in that game, allowing 520 yards. But they also had their best offensive game with 442 offensive yards. Now, running-wise, they're not a great team, obviously. Passing-wise, Joe Burrow at 371 yards. So I'm taking Joe Burrow, who, when healthy, is the better pass. And when it comes down to slow down Derrick Henry, who had about 40-ish yards right before that overtime run. So they did a great job at stopping the run.
Mm-hmm. The final score was they lost the game.
Right, they lost 41-38 on a botched kick, and then you let Derrick Henry run 51 yards.
I think it's going to be competitive, but I just think you look at the Bengals, they haven't beaten a team with a winning record yet. They haven't beaten a team that has a winning record.
They've come, like, for instance, Chiefs, 4-13. You give, was it 4-13 or 4-19? You give up a defensive pass interference call, you lose by 1 point. The Commanders, they could not stop Jaden Daniels. 38-33.
Yeah.
Then you go up against, the Philadelphia Eagles, they just completely outplayed you. Defense finally stepped up for the Eagles. Jalen Hurts had a very poor start, but then picked it up very quickly. And then, obviously, the Ravens game. Botched snap.
I think this is a
bad placement. You missed the field goal. You run down, kick again.
This game is a benchmark for the Bengals, so they have to win this game. I think they have to look at this as a must-win.
Honestly, their schedule is the next 3 games. Their entire seasons is must-win. They're filled with must-win games. But the next 3 weeks, including Thursday, at Ravens, at Chargers, versus Steelers.
It's tough.
Those are very, very difficult games. At Cowboys, that would be if Dak Prescott goes on IR. The last week he would be on IR. If they don't put him on IR, who knows? Maybe he'll be back by then. Then at Titans, that should be a win. Versus the Browns, that should be a win. Versus Denver, you're a better team than Denver, that should be a win. And then at Pittsburgh to end the year. Every single game is a must-win. Going into this game, though, think about it. I'll say it again. If people didn't hear me before, I'll repeat it again. Up until that overtime run, which shouldn't have even existed, if the rookie punter didn't botch the snap on the field goal, he would have had around 40-ish yards. Derrick Henry would have. And this is a guy who currently is on pace to be the first player in NFL history to have 2 2,000-yard rushing seasons. And you allowed him to have a little bit over 40 rushing yards. Shut him down. And this is one of the worst defenses in the NFL. And you're going up against a team in the Baltimore Ravens that have the worst pass defense in the NFL. So I agree, this is going to be a very high-scoring game. Joe Burrow's going to have, I think, another tremendous game. I think a big X factor here will be T. Higgins' availability. Now, he was a DNP this week I think that
Lamar and Derrick Henry will have a field day because the Bengals' defense is average at best.
I mean, I'm sure everybody would have said that last time they played. But the Bengals did a tremendous job at slowing them down. Yeah. Now, Lamar Jackson...
They didn't slow Lamar down that game.
Lamar
had a fantastic game. And in the end, so did Derrick Henry. He was the reason they won.
Well, yeah.
In overtime, he had the 51-yard run. That wasn't so bad.
I think that if Joe Burrow gets the hot hand, I think Zach Taylor will learn from his mistake in handing the ball off 3 straight times in overtime to set up the field goal. I think they'll be more open to passing it and say, you know what, if we stop the clock, who cares? Joe Burrow's throwing for damn near 400 yards. He has 5 passing touchdowns. Let's just keep the ball on his end. And I found it very interesting, honestly, that you're crushing the Raiders and you're leaving Joe Burrow out there. I think that was more of a morale boost, saying you've right now thrown 5 touchdowns. Throw a 6th. I want to see you throw a 6th. Keep it going. Keep this momentum going into this game against the Ravens. Because Joe Burrow has been clicking as of late. This offense has been doing a very good job, I think, in recent memory. Yes, they had one bad loss against the Eagles. But up until that point, they've done a very good job.
They have not beat a team that has a winning record.
Well, they're about to on Thursday.
Okay, well, we'll see. I'm picking the Ravens.
What's your score again?
34-31.
I'll go 37-34. Bengals get the win.
Okay, we'll see what happens.
Go Cincinnati, Joe Burrow. And right now, we're looking at Lamar Jackson setting up a third MVP. So, I mean, and that's the thing. To me, winning a third MVP is a tremendous feat. But that's not... at this point, I think a lot of people would agree that while it is phenomenal to win your third MVP, the same problems still come up for Lamar. He does not win or looks great in the postseason.
I'm sure he'd trade one of those, both of the MVPs for a Super Bowl ring.
Absolutely. Because that would put him in very rare company of being one of the most tremendous dual quarterbacks in NFL history who has a Super Bowl win. Like, that would put him in a very special category. Yes, he doesn't have the full accolades. If we get rid of two of those MVPs, and if he does win this one, he trades the two MVPs for one Super Bowl ring. Then we'd have one MVP, one Super Bowl ring, and is the best two-way quarterback we've ever seen. Very rare category. But I'm going Bengals here. I think Joe Burrow will get it done. I think that, yes, he threw a late-game interception that could have cost him the game when they could have drove and scored a touchdown to win the game. But I think when it comes down to it, Burrow will get it done late. There will be no defense in this game in my mind. It'll be exactly like this past one. No defense, a lot of offense, which is the most exciting one. Bombs away for both teams. Give me Joe Burrow, 37-34. He gets it done, and the Bengals stay alive. Because I'll say I do not feel good about it. They still technically are my Super Bowl pick. I had Bengals-Lions Super Bowl.
Huh.
I like my Lions pick a lot, though.
Yeah.
I love the NFC
Bengals.
pick.
I don't see the Bengals making the Super Bowl.
No, neither do I, but I picked it preseason, so I have to stick with it until they get eliminated.
I picked the 49ers, so I'm not sure they're making it now.
Yeah,
not the way the Lions are
playing. You have a rematch of last year. But yeah, I think that does end today's show. Once again, let's start with this. What was it 30? What'd you score again?
34-31.
34-31, 37-34. Bengals, Ravens. Thursday, great coverage on Friday. Be very, very entertaining show. Because normally, topics like this get people going, get people riled up, so Friday should be fun. But for this episode of the Harvey Hour, we thank you for the constant support. Thank you for being here early, 2 p.m. The show started. We thank you for the constant support as always. My name is Nathan Harvey. That's my dad, Stephen Harvey. We will see you Friday, 6:30 p.m. Eastern, right here on YouTube.
Good afternoon, Grandpa.
Traveling can be a nightmare. Why? You can't watch your favorite shows abroad. You can't trust public Wi-Fi spots anymore. And when you return, roaming bills kill your vibe. Unless you get a NordVPN and Saley deal. NordVPN will increase your privacy online. And Saley, a global eSIM data app, will save you from those unexpected roaming charges. Grab the 2-year NordVPN deal with 76% off and get up to 20 gigabytes Saley eSIM data gift